pay special attention to the option to limit the audience for posts you shared with friends of friends or public. I know that's a mouthful, but basically what it means is, if you used to have a public account but then thought better of it, great, good move, smart. But you also need to lock this setting down to make sure that those old public posts become private now. That doesn't happen retroactively. Once you've taken care of that, head over to timeline and tagging. This gives you some control over what shows up in your Facebook timeline. Basically, you can't stop your friends from tagging you, and they're going to, because friends are terrible. But you can stop those embarrassing photos from popping up on your page. At the very least, you should go to review posts you're tagged in before the post appears in your timeline. Enable that. To test out your changes, go to review what other people see on your timeline. You can even see how specific people view your page, like, say, your ex. Not that you're hung up on them, or anything at all. Of course, that should just about cover your friends. Now on to advertisers, which are like friends, except they never leave you alone, even if you ask nicely. In that same settings panel, head down to ads. Now, as you probably already guessed, Facebook knows what you do pretty much everywhere online. So does Google, so do dozens of ad networks you've never heard of. Thanks, Internet. You can still limit how Facebook uses that information, though. If you go ahead and turn off ads based on my use of websites and apps, that lawnmower you looked at on Amazon won't follow you over to Facebook. Say no to ads on apps and websites off the Facebook companies does the same, except for all the sites Facebook serves ads to around the web. Lastly, for some fun insight into how advertisers really think of you, click on Your Interests. There you'll find all the categories Facebook uses to tailor ads for you. You can remove any you don't like, and marvel at the ones that don't make any sense. Apparently I'm into backpacks. I had no idea. And you're good, or at least as good as can be expected. It's still Facebook after all.
Book. He has turned into something of a critic of Facebook, extremely fixed, and this is the perfect time, not just the perfect month, but the perfect week to be on stage with Roger McNamee. In fact, the perfect day. So, hello, Roger.
Nick, it's a pleasure.
I also want to do some housekeeping. We will be taking questions from the audience through Slido. You probably have seen how this works, but you can go on and you can type in your questions. They will pop on a screen. I will then ask Roger. All right, let's do this. By the way, this is the book. Y'all should get it. It's very good. All right, Roger. I want this to be a forward-looking conversation, mostly. People have read the book. They're familiar with this. But I want to ask one backwards-looking question because I think it's important. So about 10 years ago, you meet Zuckerberg. You give him very helpful advice, saying don't sell out to Yahoo. Lord knows what would have happened if he had. You become a mentor. During those early years, did you view Facebook as a cool company that had done something brilliant, smart founder? Or did you actually view it in the idealistic way, that this is the company that will connect the world and do something wonderful for humanity? How much of it was an exciting new thing, and how much of it was so different?
When I first met Mark, he was 22. The company was 2 years old. It was still limited to college and high school students with an email account from their school. There was no news feed yet. And the day we met, I'd been in the investment business for 24 years. I'd been blessed to get there before the PC industry. So as Nick said, I'd seen a lot of things, and I was asked to take a meeting without knowing the topic. And yet, when Mark came to see me, I already was convinced that Facebook was the next big thing, that he had broken the code, the thing that had killed every attempt at social apps before that, whether it was AOL or The Well, whether it was Friendster or MySpace. Essentially, the ability to be anonymous allowed trolls to take over. And I was convinced that Mark's requirement of authenticated identity was literally the holy grail. It was the thing that was going to unlock this opportunity. And the fact that he gave you real control of privacy was a big deal.
But unlock a financial opportunity or unlock a moral opportunity?
Well, from my perspective, there was no investment opportunity. So when I first met him, I was going into a meeting to give advice to a young man. And so I viewed this as what we had learned was connecting people on big networks always devolved into sort of trolldom. And I was convinced he had the way to fix that. So there was a distinct idealism to it. And because there was no investment opportunity, I was there because I wanted to meet the young guy who'd figured this thing out.
So he'd figured out how to make a big network work. And you, as someone who'd been in Silicon Valley, as everybody tried to crack the idea of a big network that would actually make the world a better place, you supported this as a cause in some way.
Well, don't give me too much credit. I looked at this as, technology for 50 years before that point had produced nothing but positive outcomes for society.
Yeah.
So I didn't even have it in my head that a thing like Facebook could go bad. So the idealism that was there was something that everyone in my generation would have had dating back to the 50s. And, when I looked at Mark, I was looking at a guy, they were 20 years old when they figured out that you could apply graph theory to a network design. That was like such a genius insight. And again, I was just meeting with a young guy. The question was, could I help him out? Right? I didn't have to have like a massive moral view, but whatever one I had was this pure idealism I had about tech. I was a technology optimist, like everybody else.
Okay, well, let's dig into that, right? I'm the editor of a magazine which used to have the motto, change is good. And now we run a few critical stories from time to time. No, not you. How do you look back at that period of optimism? Do you say it was the right attitude for the time and the times are different? Do you say, damn, what was I thinking?
No, I look at it as I give myself a break on 2006 because in 2006, again, we were in the early days of Web 2.0, of this notion that we were going to replace the web of pages with a web of people. And I had not tipped to Google's strategy of taking what they called the digital exhaust of search queries and of email and of maps and applying it to behavioral prediction. I consider that a major failure of analysis on my part, but I did not know about that then. So maybe I was stupid, but I don't look at this as, somehow, I look at this like there were things I might have known then that I did not know that I wish I'd known now.
But you give yourself a break, not just on 2000.
That's crazy talk. Without Facebook, you'd never find out which your high school friends went on to embrace fringe political views or see sponsored ads for clothing companies you've never heard of. Not an option. Instead, here are a few simple steps you can take to make sure that you're sharing what you want with who you want, including advertisers. Alright, let's start with the easy part, limiting who can see which of your posts. If you're on a desktop, then it's down arrow in the upper right-hand corner and click Settings. From there, click on Privacy on the left-hand side and get comfy, because you're going to spend a little time here. Under Who Can See My Stuff, the Who Can See Your Future Posts option lets you manage your defaults. That means you can set it to whoever you want. Public. Go to the little drop-down arrow in the upper right-hand corner and click Settings. From there, click on Privacy on the left-hand side and get comfy, because you're going to spend a little time here. Under Who Can See My Stuff, the Who Can See Your Future Posts option lets you manage your defaults. That means you can set it to whoever you want. Public means anyone at all. You can limit it to your friends. You can limit it to all your friends except for Jerry and Pam, because screw those guys. You can quarantine your posts by geography or by current or previous employers or schools or groups. It's very granular. Use it. Just remember that the next time you change those settings, that group becomes your default for every post from then on. So double check every time you go ahead and send something out there. This section has other important privacy tools you can fiddle with, including who can look you up with your email address or phone number. Just to be safe, go ahead and say no one. But pay special attention to the option to limit the audience for posts you shared with friends of friends or public. I know that's a mouthful, but basically what it means is, if you used to have a public account but then thought better of it, great, good move, smart. But you also need to lock this setting down to make sure that those old public posts become private now. That doesn't happen retroactively. Once you've taken care of that, head over to timeline and tagging. This gives you some control over what shows up in your Facebook timeline. Basically, you can't stop your friends from tagging you, and they're going to, because friends are terrible. But you can stop those embarrassing photos from popping up on your page. At the very least, you should go to review posts you're tagged in before the post appears in your timeline. Enable that. To test out your changes, go to review what other people see on your timeline. You can even see how specific people view your page, like, say, your ex. Not that you're hung up on them, or anything at all. Of course, that should just about cover your friends. Now on to advertisers, which are like friends, except they never leave you alone, even if you ask nicely. In that same settings panel, head down to ads. Now, as you probably already guessed, Facebook knows what you do pretty much everywhere online. So does Google, so do dozens of ad networks you've never heard of. Thanks, Internet. You can still limit how Facebook uses that information, though. If you go ahead and turn off ads based on my use of websites and apps, that lawnmower you looked at on Amazon, you can still limit how Facebook uses that information, though. If you go ahead and turn off ads based on my use of websites and apps, that lawnmower you looked at on Amazon won't follow you over to Facebook. Saying no to ads on apps and websites off the Facebook companies does the same, except for all the sites Facebook serves ads to around the web. Lastly, for some fun insight into how advertisers really think of you, click on Your Interests. There you'll find all the categories Facebook uses to tailor ads for you. You can remove any you don't like, and marvel at the ones that don't make any sense. Apparently I'm into backpacks. Had no idea. And you're good, or at least as good as can be expected. It's still Facebook after all.